You're tuned into Recovery TV, the voice of hope, with your host, John J. Tassoni Jr. Discussions and information on addiction and mental health issues. Here's your host with today's guest.
Welcome to another edition of Recovery TV, and I'm your host, John Tassoni. Narcan, please get it. You can get it at CVS, you can get it at Walgreens, any pharmacy has it. URI has it. Keep it in your purse, keep it in your car, take it out at night because it's weather attentive. My guest today is Miss Susan Tessia McKenzie, and she's a family representative here in Rhode Island. Susan, welcome and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Why are you here?
Well, so there's, with the recovery and, watching your show in the past, and one thing I noticed is no talk about brain injury and drug overdose. So in my situation is my husband had cardiac arrest middle of the night. He suffered an anoxic brain injury, which is global. So all aspects of his brain were affected. No resources, no funding, nothing to find what can happen next. What does recovery look like to a person that has a brain injury as severe as he has? And the only way I found answers was in different groups, different caregivers of people with anoxic brain injuries. There is a whole group of people, of parents, grandparents, brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, spouses, caring for people that suffered drug overdose, received Narcan, but were left with a global anoxic brain injury in the process. And you don't hear a lot about that at all.
No, you don't.
At all. And, I've done my homework, done my research, and once I heard that, with my husband's injury, it was cardiac arrest, which immediately caused no oxygen to the brain. With a drug overdose, there is some oxygen to the brain because it's usually slow breathing that's the cause of it.
Right.
But that results in a hypoxic brain injury oftentimes. And I don't see the proper protocols or procedures in place for somebody that has a drug overdose, that even gets hit with Narcan, no follow through. And it's not anybody's fault except typically the patient that gets the Narcan. They're good, I'm good, I'm fine.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying? So there are a lot of people out there walking around with a brain injury that's been that's not even diagnosed, I should say.
They don't even know about it.
They don't even know it. 50 to, sadly, as high as 80% of homelessness, they have brain injuries. Many due to overdose, others slip and falls, also undiagnosed.
Let me ask you a couple of questions about that, and obviously you can either answer or, because it's a little bit on the edge.
Okay.
So what happened to your husband? Was it a substance use issue?
No.
Was it an alcohol issue? It just happened.
It just happened. So I'm glad you mentioned that, actually. So he barely drinks, no drugs, maybe smoke a joint every so often, but even that wasn't a regular basis. He did get Narcan because they didn't know.
Right.
So when it happened in the middle of the night, I started CPR.
You did?
I did. He was already getting cold. EMTs arrived, and they had to give Narcan. But what's funny about the Narcan, I just want to point out that Narcan will not help even if it's an overdose. Once they go into cardiac arrest, Narcan will not get your heart started again, which is why Narcan quickly is so important. Once your heart stops due to cardiac arrest, now you need the
CPR.
Yes, you have to have CPR. You could still do, the Narcan, obviously, but the CPR is now needed once the heart stops, which is what happened to my husband. He was labeled as having Brugada syndrome, which is a whole other show. Not even sure what it is, but it's a genetic disorder. His heart is perfect. He has they were baffled. He remained in a coma for a couple of weeks. I was actually told he had no brain activity, and I should do the right thing and let him go. Tell him that while his grandkids are, hunting for Easter eggs yesterday while he was holding the baby. So he made an amazing recovery, but not everybody's that fortunate.
Right.
At all.
So, how old is your husband?
55 when it happened. He's now 61.
Okay. What was the prognosis?
Well-
where are we going?
Again, you're asking me all these great questions. There is no prognosis. There is none. The initial prognosis was PVS, which is partially vegetative state, or MCS, which is minimally conscious state. He surpassed both of those. Then he'll never remember you. He'll never be able to talk. He'll never be able to walk. He'll never be able to do anything. Quadriplegic or paraplegic or whatever, blind, can't. I mean, because it's a global brain injury, it affects everything, a little bit of everything.
Yeah, it's not just one section of the brain.
Exactly, which is traumatic brain injury is
Right.
typically one section. But so there's no prognosis because, I mean, I take him to the beach. He walked down to the water, just this past year using his walker, walked down to the beach. So he's just kind of blown everybody away. Good and bad to that is now nobody knows what to do with him because he's surpassed what we were told.
Right.
And sadly, I think people still go back to the initial paperwork of 50 minutes down, DOA, and the whole bit, and don't think that he's capable of doing what he's doing. I mean, it's mind-boggling.
Well, there are miracles.
He is a miracle.
There are
One of his
miracles.
doctors called him a miracle, calls a miracle man.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. Now, when you like take him to the doctors, when you
Yeah.
take him to blood work, when you take him anywhere, is he self-motivated to come out of the car and go?
Yes, I don't need to. Nobody likes to go for blood work. He doesn't like needles, but you know what? He gets it. He understands it. We live on 3rd floor. He climbs up and down 2 flights of stairs.
Oh my God!
Yeah, I mean, I will take him to the bike path as the weather clears. It gets warmer. He goes to the bike path, and I am very tough on him. I'm tough on him because I know the man that I married was always a fighter, a go-getter and so on.
Right.
So I push him.
What did he do for a living?
He was in the car business. And in the car business, he wasn't selling cars, he wasn't management. He did whatever the owners of the businesses needed. Worked locally here in Rhode Island as well as in Massachusetts. He was laid off from one place because they were closing to remodel the building. He didn't go to unemployment. He went to another car dealership and worked for them. He said, I'm a worker. He was a hard worker. And but yeah, he was a very hard-working guy.
So in the diagnosis of the doctors, seeing this brain issue, was there anything linked to the car business, or is it all generic?
They're saying it's genetic. If I'm being completely honest, I have to voice what I think it is because it may help somebody else. I personally think it was sleep apnea. Sleep apnea can and will cause a disruption in your breathing.
Right.
And if it doesn't come back quickly enough, you go into cardiac arrest.
Yeah.
And I say that, the noise that it woke me, I'll never forget. So that's why
A
my
gasping
brain,
noise?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like not your normal snore.
Yeah.
And, so that may even help somebody else, like a wife that knows her husband is a big snorer, get checked. Get checked, because that's really what I believe.
Yeah. So we're gonna take a break. I gotta ask you more about that because I gotta be honest. I have sleep apnea and didn't like the machine, and I'm thinking of going back. But now talking to you, I'm gonna leave you here and I'm gonna run to the doctors right now. I'm gonna take a quick break. You're watching Recovery TV, and I'm your host, John Tassoni. We'll be right back with Miss McKenzie.
And now back to Recovery TV with your host, John J. Tassoni Jr. Recovery TV is made possible by our supporting sponsors and our title sponsor, Kodak. Now, here's John and today's guest.
Welcome back to Recovery TV, and I'm your host, John Tassoni. Sue McKenzie is in the house. We're talking about her husband. He had traumatic brain issues, and I'm stunned. I'm stunned to the point where you hear a lot about these kids today with overdoses. I had one young boy on my show that overdosed 22 times and saved by Narcan all 22. Now I'm thinking, is he going to have long-term issues with brain stuff?
Quite possibly, yes.
And you're on the show today to bring awareness, because we had coffee and you were talking about your husband, and I never thought to the point where this coordinates with substance use and mental health.
Well, nobody does, sadly.
Right.
And that's why I wanted to be here. You know, again, it doesn't matter that my husband was not an overdose. I want to bring the awareness that it can happen with an overdose or with repeated drug use or
Right.
alcohol.
Right.
I mean, there are so many things that can cause these brain injuries. You know, drug is and alcohol would be the anoxic, unless, of course, they fall. You know, you have a person that's a drinker, has a car accident. The head, you don't need to see blood, you don't need to see a bump,
Right.
but your head shift. An airbag comes out at you about 100, I think it's a minimum of 100 miles an hour, in your face. There's your frontal temporal lobe. So I had a friend, haven't seen her in a while, you know, not like, hey, let's go out to lunch, friend. I saw her, I said, hey, how you doing? How's your husband? So on. She's like, we're not together anymore. I said, why not? She goes, oh, suddenly he just got so mean and nasty. I said, not your husband. I mean, he was a wonderful man. And then it like clicked. I said, didn't he have a car accident a couple of years ago? And the look on her face was like, oh my God. When she realized where I was going with that. People have car accidents every day.
Right.
And now the state of Rhode Island is trying to implement programs for traumatic brain injuries. But when it comes to the addiction aspect of it, drinking too much, you can slip and fall, hit your head. Who's going to get checked at the hospital? Right. You know what I mean? Same thing, you know, you OD, are you really getting checked?
Right.
You know, and especially if a friend is giving you Narcan to revive you, chances are you're not getting looked at. You're not getting an MRI. You're not getting a CT scan.
Right.
So there are people every day out there that have brain injuries that aren't even aware because they haven't been checked.
Yeah. So when your husband had this first episode, how many surgeries has he had since then?
So the initial episode was January of 2020. As I said, there was no hope from doctors at that time, but I felt it was too soon, so I held on. He came out of his coma. He was nonverbal and immobile. From there, it took another almost 2 weeks, say 10 days before he spoke again. And I just gave myself chills because I remember the moment he did speak. I was walking out of the room and I said, bye, honey, I'll be back. I'll give you privacy, because the nurse would clean him up and everything. And I said, I'll be back. I love you. And I walked out of the room, and as I'm walking out of the room, he goes, I love you too. And I was like,
oh, dear God.
What just happened?
What just happened, right.
It was a flurry of activity in that room because nobody expected that.
Right.
So he did a good recovery. That was just the beginning of constant moving forward to a point where, you know, he was walking with a cane. The problem, he's more susceptible to falls due to balance issues.
Right. Yeah.
He did have several falls. 2024, he was in a nursing home for rehab. Lives at home, let me make that clear. He lives at home, we live on 3rd floor, and he hikes up and down 2 flights of stairs every day. But he needed a tweak in rehab because they didn't know what was wrong. Come to find out, he had hydrocephalus, which Billy Joel was just diagnosed, I believe, last year with it. So he had to have a shunt put in his brain. So that was one of the brain surgeries he had. And then last month, he had a fall, and this time he started to get, you know, very lethargic, you know, leaning to the left. And he had a brain bleed, so he had another brain surgery on March 5th at Lifespan. So he's had a few surgeries, a few staples to the head, stitches.
God bless him.
Yep, but
he's a fighter.
We call him a cat. He's like
He's a
9
cat,
lives.
9 lives.
He's crazy.
Let me ask you a question about your children.
Yeah.
You have two?
We have 2 children.
Yeah.
a girl
Yeah.
and a boy.
Okay.
Our daughter's 38 and our son is 32.
Yeah.
Both, well, my daughter's married, son has a girlfriend, they each have 2 children, and they all came over yesterday for
Nice.
Easter. And Ron was hospitalized up until Saturday. I had to get him out of the facility because insurance stopped covering his rehab. That's another story for another show. So he came home and he had an amazing day with his grandchildren. He was holding the littlest, which is 10 months old, little adorable thing. And yeah, he had a good day. He had a really good day.
So I think it's important to let the viewers know, we've known each other for a long time. You were in the printing business, I was in the printing business. But I think when you reached out to me to tell me this story, I was flabbergasted. And I'm flabbergasted now that you're telling me that the insurance has cut you off. And it's unfortunate.
Well, certainly is.
Someone, taking care of your husband like you are, human beings and the insurance companies. We're not going to mention the insurance company.
No, we will not do. We won't go
But
there.
the insurance company will get a call from me tomorrow and see what we can do to square this away. But the ultimate goal, and I think you as a person and as a wife of, I don't know how many years, but
Almost
has
35.
has to deal with traumatic injury, period.
Yes.
And all that you have gone through and all that your children have gone through to see their father and their grandfather go through this like he's going through.
Yeah.
And I tell people all the time, God gives you as much as you can handle.
I should be able to pick up a
And
rip the
I-
bus
and I
right
say-
now.
And I say, enough.
Enough.
Enough, help me out here. But we're going to talk a little bit about awareness when we come back, because we got to take another
Okay.
break, because
Absolutely.
I think
Awareness is crucial.
you're doing a phenomenal job of what you do, and
Thank you.
to bring awareness to this on this show, it'll be very helpful to families and friends. You're watching Recovery TV, and I'm your host, John Tassoni. We'll be right back after these messages.
And now back to Recovery TV with your host, John J. Tassoni Jr. Recovery TV is made possible by our supporting sponsors and our title sponsor, Kodak. Now, here's John and today's guest.
Welcome back to Recovery TV, and I'm your host, John Tassoni. Sue Tessia McKenzie is in the house, and thank you for joining us today. We've been talking about brain injuries, and unfortunately, her husband is one of the folks why she called me to come on the show and to bring awareness to the brain injury issue.
Yes.
So thank you for doing that, and thank you for coming on. So let's talk about awareness.
Okay. So when this first happened, I knew nothing about an anoxic brain injury. And people hear all about overdose. So in my research, again, when you overdose, it goes to the brain. There are many drugs, fentanyl, meth, that pass the blood-brain barrier. So it goes to the brain first, then trickles down to the organs, eventually leading to cardiac arrest. That can take 1 to 3 hours. With my husband, his heart immediately stopped because it wasn't a drug overdose.
Right.
It didn't go to the brain, it went to the heart, causing the lack of oxygen to go to the brain. Okay, I like to clarify things. Now, with traumatic brain injuries, you're looking at a slip and fall, car accidents, the airbag hits you in the face, sports-related injuries, hockey, these, all these kids, gymnastics can cause a brain injury. So right now, there's a lot of awareness to that perspective to students in schools and sports-related incidents. Right now, they're also trying to incorporate any brain injury in schools, related to children, I should
Right.
say. You fall down the stairs, you're not counted. But the purpose of that is grants.
Awareness,
Yeah,
awareness.
awareness.
I'm going to have you come back on because there's so much to cover. here.
We could go on and on. Awareness is key, so you ask the questions. Your friend has a drug overdose, ask the
The question.
questions.
We got a cut. Coming up next is Kodak Live, a truly integrated healthcare system. Next week, my guest is Representative Julie Casamaro. Talk about children's issues. See you next week.